Good morning. It is November 3rd, and this is devotions from St. Paul Evangelical Lutheran Church in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. The Bible tells us a lot of things about how we relate to God and how we deal with God's expectations of us. Early in the Old Testament, up through Moses, he talked about a lot of sacrifices. But later in the Old Testament, the prophet Micah gave us a different kind of idea of what God expects of us. And so I'd like to read from Micah and then discuss that for a couple of minutes. So this is from the 6th chapter of Micah, verses 6 through 8. With what shall I come before the Lord and bow myself down before God on high? Shall I come before him with burnt offering, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with 1,000 rams, with 10,000 rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? He has told you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? But to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. I think about the beginning of those verses 6 and 7, and it talks about things from early in the experience. Sacrifices were something that the Israelites were very aware of. The priests did them every day, and they did special ones every year. And they included animals and oil and even the beginnings of the crops of the field, the first fruits of labor. The story of the firstborn and sacrificing that for our salvation relates the idea of Abraham, when God told him to sacrifice Isaac, and Abraham went to do that. In fact, he was ready to slay Isaac on the altar when God stopped him. God knew that he was faithful. But Micah gives us a different idea. And in verse 8, one of the more well-known verses from the Old Testament, he gives us 3 ideas about what God expects. The first one is justice. Do justice. Now, first off, do justice sounds like an action. The Lutheran Study Bible uses the word equality to relate to justice. Treat people so they're equal. We can all argue about what that means, but it is an active, think of other people, do other people justice idea. The second one is kindness. Now again, the Lutheran Study Bible talks about kindness as an active thing. It talks about integrity and loyalty and doing acts for other people. Now, most of us understand the idea of kindness. In fact, there's an idea of we should do random acts of kindness every day. But I think this goes beyond that to being very faithful to those around us, to being true to the people that we live with, to being very thoughtful of other people. And then the last one is to walk humbly with our God. For me, this is the hardest one. Think about what humility means. It means putting my own desires, my own beliefs, my own thoughts, my own self-worth behind that of other people, and particularly behind that of God. I think one of the best examples of this comes from the Garden of Gethsemane, when Jesus prayed 3 times to the Father, Father, I really don't want to do this. But if it is your will, then let me drink this cup. Humility, putting his own desires and actions behind the thoughts, desires of the Father. We think, I've earned this, I deserve this. That's not humility. And yet that's the way we live. That's the way the world looks. But humility says, what can I do? How can I do for others before I do for myself? So today, think about what God expects. Think about the actions that God expects. And think about your own life. As I think about my own life, and what can I do to follow the guidance that we get from Micah, to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with our God. Thank you.